I want to show you how to test your GPS receiver, your UBlox-based GPS receiver, and configure it using U-Center. Now, originally I was going to do this. I have a section here in the article that I wrote on GPS on U-Center, and it describes how to install it on Windows. I started doing this video on Windows, but the screen capture, the screen recording software I was using didn't record the menus, and it didn't record the status bar of the U-Center software. I don't understand why. So I decided to do this on Mac, and then I had to install it on Mac, which was quite an odyssey. So I decided to actually write that up and make that part of this video. It's very simple to use U-Center on Windows because it's a Windows application. You just download it, run the installer, it installs it, and then you run it. You'll run it in the way that I'm going to show you that you run it. So installation simple, running it's the same as what I'm going to show you. Installation is not simple on a Macintosh. And so I'm going to show you what I did, and I got it working, and you'll be able to get it working if you're using a Mac as well. And I'm using a piece of software to do this called it's called Run on Mac. Is that what it's called? Go look at my notes here. PlayOnMac. It's called PlayOnMac, and it is a build of a open source project called Wine, which creates a Windows emulation layer on Linux, and it has been ported to Macintosh as well. And PlayOnMac sort of packages that up with a bunch of UI to make it easy to use. And generally speaking, it was very easy to use. What was difficult was exposing the COM ports, exposing the USB port on a Mac as a COM port in the Windows software. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we want to install the necessary software. First, you're going to install XQuartz. XQuartz is a X11-based windowing system. It's a Linux-like windowing system that PlayOnMac uses, or Wine uses actually. So you're just going to go to the XQuartz site, xquartz.com, and just download whatever the latest stable release is. I'm doing this in late September 2022, and the latest version is 2.8.2, and that supports both 32-bit and 64-bit Windows applications, and that's important because I have a later version. I have an 11.x version of MacOS. Some of the earlier versions of PlayOnMac won't work, so we want to use the latest versions of everything that we can. So 2.82 is what I have. If they have a later one from the stable channel, then use that. So you're just going to download that, and it's just a DMG installer. So open it up. It will have a Mac installer inside it. Run that Mac installer, and that will install Quartz for you. And it takes 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, so step 1, install XQuartz. Step 2, install PlayOnMac. So install PlayOnMac is about as simple. So you're going to go to PlayOnMac.com and to their downloads, and then I'm installing version 4.43 because it's for Mac OS 10.15 or higher. So 11, I have 11 point something. If you have an earlier version before 10.15, then you're going to want version 4.33. And that only supports, that supports 32 bits and 64. Okay. So, so I used version 4.43 for this. But if there's a higher number stable version, just use whatever's available. So you're just going to download that. That's also a DMG. And you're going to, when it opens, it's one of those ones where you just copy the application into the applications folder. And so PlayOnMac application will end up in your applications folder. Sure, here it is on mine. This is my applications folder, and here's PlayOnMac. Okay, so that's step 2, install PlayOnMac. Okay, now we want to download the U-Center installer, and then we're going to install it in PlayOnMac. So downloading the U-Center installer is also simple. You're going to go to the U-Center downloads for the UBlox U-Center downloads. And here again, there's also 2 versions available. One is for the Series 10 based chipsets. You probably don't have one of those. They're brand spanking new, and I don't know of any products that use them, or they'd be probably expensive professional products. So I'm using Series 9, but this one that says F9, M9, that'll work for Series 8, Series 7, Series 6, all the older ones. So that's probably the one you want, and that's U-Center 22.07 at this time. So download that. That's a .exe file, and it's an installer. So will end up in your downloads folder. And now I'm going to show you how to use PlayOnMac to run that installer to install U-Center into PlayOnMac. So the first thing we're going to do, so actually I think I had PlayOnMac already running. So excuse me. So just go to your applications folder and run PlayOnMac. Okay, and then I actually already have it installed. You can see I have it in the icon installed here. But what you'll do is you'll go to your downloads folder, where you have the U-Center 22.07.exe, and you see that it's the .exe extension is associated with PlayOnMac. So we have this PlayOnMac icon. I'll make it bigger. Icons. Yeah. So we have it. It has the PlayOnMac icon. So if you double click this, it'll launch a wizard, and you can install it into PlayOnMac, and then you end up with an icon for U-Center. And you should get this configuration thing. If you don't, then you're going to want to run configure and configure U-Center. But I believe it creates a default configuration when you first install it. But if not, create one. And then once you've created one, when you click on this, you'll see this little menu where you can run it. Okay. Now that we can run, we'll be able to run U-Center. Now I've done this, and the first time I ran it, even after I plugged in the board, I didn't have any COM ports available to me. It didn't show any COM ports in the U-Center menus. So when I remember doing this in Wine, when I first used Wine by itself, and you had to write some symbolic links and stuff like this to create to associate your USB device with the COM port. You do a similar thing in PlayOnMac, but it's the specifics are very different. I had to discover them. I can't find them anywhere on the internet. So maybe this will be useful to a bunch of people that want to use PlayOnMac with serial ports on the Macintosh. Okay, so I have a separate section here with the details on how to set up a COM port in PlayOnMac. Okay. So first of all, we need to know the serial ports, your serial port's device path. And you can just do this command to list. It's usually, this is easiest to do in 2 steps. So first, list all your TTY devices. Those are serial port devices before you plug in your board, and then list them again after you plug in your board and find the new one. So if you go to so ls/dev/tty star, those are all the serial ports. And right now I don't have it plugged in, so if you go to the beginning of the list, you'll see there that Bluetooth is enabled, so I have this Bluetooth serial port. But all these others are sort of these generic serial ports. Now if I plug in, I'm going to plug in my RG Simple board into a USB port on my MacBook Air. Okay, and the power and everything's lit up, so I'll show you that actually. So there's the board, and you can see a couple of LEDs lit. This is the no RTK LED, and that's the power LED. So I got power, and I don't have RTK available yet. Now I've hooked up my antenna, and I remember complaining that, well, maybe not complaining, but just noting, hey, this antenna cable is really long and I don't need it to be that long. Well, it turns out I do, because I have this going all the way over to a tripod set up near my window in my office, so the GPS can at least see some of the sky through the window. Okay, so that's the board. I plugged it in, it's powered. Now let's go look at our list of USB devices again, and go up here. Oh, and look at this one. Okay, so here's the new one, and that's not random. That's consistent every single time I plug in this board. That's the name of the port. So you're going to want to copy that down. You're gonna need it as we do this configuration. Yours might be different than mine, by the way. So copy down whatever yours is. And I'll be using this one in these instructions, but you're going to want to use the one whatever yours is. Okay, so now we know the serial ports device path. Now we're going to create a symbolic link from that device to what we want to name our COM port. And I'm going to name the COM port COM1. So it could be COM2, COM3, COM4, whatever but I'm going to call it COM1. So we want to create that symbolic link in a folder called DOS devices that will be in the configuration folder for U-Center. So remember that in here, when we click on U-Center, it has this little configure thing. Well, there's underlying in the file system, there's a folder for all the configuration for U-Center that PlayOnMac maintains, and we can look at that. It's in, for me, it's in, if you go to your user folder, your home folder, right? And then you want to show this library folder. I think you can do that by show view options on the Mac and then click show library folder, because it's going to be in there. So if we go in the library folder, and then there'll be a play on DOS folder. Let's turn this back into a list because it makes it easier. And then we have a play on Mac folder here. Go into that. And then there's this folder called wine prefix. Let's go into that. And then you can see this U-Center folder, U_center_ folder. That's our configuration folder. If we go in there, then we see a bunch of things. In particular, the one that we're going to care about right now is this DOS devices folder. So I'm going to go into that. Now, I've already made my symbolic link, and I'm going to just show you what it looks like. So I've made this file called that symbolic link to COM1, and here's how I did it. I did it using a bash shell, or I guess it's Z shell now on the latest Macs. So I did it with the command line. And the command that I entered was this. So this is the ln to make a symbolic link from our device path to the path to the COM port name. So from our home folder, library, PlayOnMac, wine prefix, U-Center, DOS devices, COM1. So create that symbolic link. Just run that command in the in a shell in a console, and use the COM port that you care about and the name of your device path. So once we've created that symbolic link, now we have to create, that's in the Macintosh, now we need to update the Windows system registry that on PlayOnMac to have a matching registry entry. And that the registry file is at a similar place. It's sort of close to be in the same folder. So let's back up one here. So now we're in that U-Center folder again, and that's the file that we care about. That's a file. So we want to edit that file. That's a text file. So edit it in a code editor of some sort. Don't edit it in Mac Text Edit. Don't edit it in a word processor. Use some sort of code editor, because we don't want it to add any special characters. I used TextMate. So then we're going to want to go find the section that starts with this, software /s/lines/ports, all in brackets. So do a search for that, and then we're going to add an entry in that section that associates COM1 with our device path. And the entry looks exactly like this. And then, so what I ended up with for my section looks like this. So there's the section. These were already there, so there's some sort of, I'm not exactly sure what that is, a checksum or something. Some time it was changed. I'm not exactly sure what those are. But then here's the line. Here's the line that we're adding. So so your section should look something like this, but you'll use your COM port in your device path. And then go ahead and save that file. Now we've permanently added the COM port. So now when we run U-Center from within PlayOnMac, we should have COM port 1 available in the connection menu. So I'm actually going to unplug my modem now, and we're going to go run PlayOnMac. So it's running. We're going to go run U-Center. So you can double click this thing and it'll run it, or you can click run here. So I'll just click, I've selected this, and now I have this menu, so I'll click run. This is an original MacBook Air, so it's a really old Mac. So it's relatively slow. Hopefully this will start up faster on your machine, but be patient. If you hit run, it's going to run. So there we are. It started up. All right, cool. So I'm going to make this take up the whole screen, because that'll... Okay, great. Now here we are in the state where we don't, I'm not plugged in, so none of these things have data flowing into them. Over on the right here, none of these widgets have data flowing into them. If we look under the receiver menu up here, go up to the menu, the fifth menu over is receiver, and then open that and look at connection, and you should have COM1 there, or whatever COM port you created. When I first started up PlayOnMac the first time, that was blank. It didn't have anything in it. But now that we've made the changes, I have COM1 in there. So now let's plug in. I'm going to plug in the RG Simple board to my USB port, and the lights powered on like they did before. And now look at the widgets over on the right. We can start to see data flowing in there. That's cool. Now also look down here at the status. At the very bottom there's the status thing, and we can see COM1 down here is at 9600 baud. Let's make that faster. So we can go to the receiver, and below connection is baud rate, and then let's pick 115200. So we're getting faster transfer through the COM port. And you can see over here, as this thing's running, it can start to see more and more satellites. So it sees a bunch of American GPS satellites. It sees some Russian GLONASS satellites. What else does it see? If we look up here, you can see a few Chinese Baidu satellites. I can usually see, at least during the daytime, I will often see I'll often see the European Galileo system as well. I'll have some of those satellites. And this over here is a thing called EGNOS satellites. I've got a couple of those. I'm not exactly even sure what those are. So we're looking at a number of different satellite systems. That's one of the cool things about the 9 series, is it can talk to lots of different satellite systems. I believe the 7 series, the 6 series only talked GPS. The 7 series talked GPS and GLONASS. The 8 series would talk GPS, GLONASS. I think it did Baidu and Galileo as well. And this new one does even more. Okay, so now now that we've got PlayOnMac running and we have our thing plugged in, let's look at what we want to do to test it. So we've connected our GPS receiver to the computer by plugging into the USB port. Select the COM port under the receiver connection menu. We did that. We've set up COM1. Select the baud rate. We did that. Okay, now if you have an RTK receiver, test your N-Trip account settings. So let's do that. Show you how to enter your N-Trip client server and credentials so that you can make sure your account works, and then we can show you how RTCM corrections can be applied onto your board. So first go under receiver, the receiver menu, to N-Trip client. We're going to be talking to an N-Trip server, so we're the client, so N-Trip client. And then you're going to add, now presumably you've signed up for an account already, so with some organization, I used UNAVCO. And when I did that, they sent me the information I need to fill in this dialog. So the address that they gave me was and I wrote my particular address down in the U-Center section of this document that I wrote, and it is rtgpsout.unavco.org. rtgsout.unavco.org. And I remember for RTCM corrections, the port number is 2101. My username and my password. Now that we've done that, we should be able to click on this button, update source table, and it will list all the servers. So let's click on that. Oh, damn it! Don't type that in right. Oh my God. RTGPS That's what I did wrong. rtgpsout.unavco.org, port 21, credentials. Okay, so update source table. Now it's retrieving it. So there they are. Now I have already gone onto the UNAVCO site, and I know that I want to use base station named P200. So I can go into this list and find that. It's down here somewhere. There it is. Oop. Getting there, P200. And so the way they have theirs formatted is it's the name of the base station and the protocol and the data format, in this case RTCM version 3. And that's all we have to set up. So now when I hit OK, now we'll start to get, we can look down here, we can see in the status bar down at the bottom, N-Trip client RTGPSout.unapco.org 2101, and it's green, it's connected. And if we look up here, we should be able to start to see the fixed mode start to improve here. And actually, we look at our board. Do that. So the board is very blurry, but if you look at the board, the RTK light is blinking now, so it's getting some RTK information, but it's not in fixed mode yet, because this, well, actually that's the opposite. This will start to blink when it starts to move towards RTK mode. This is the RTK when it gets extinguished, we're in fixed mode, this this LED. So let's go back to U-Center, and at this time of night I don't have a good view of the satellites, so I don't know if we're gonna get there, but right now we're in 3D DGNSS mode. As we get more RTK information, then this should move to 3D/DGNSS float mode. When you're in float mode, you're getting corrections, and they're being applied to your satellites, but not all of them are applied, or not enough of them are applied. But it's still a higher precision mode than without it. So I've driven my car when it's just in float mode, and it works fine. Once it goes to fixed mode, from float mode to fixed mode, oh, actually we should be there. It's not showing it up here. Let's look at this. It's not showing it. But I'm looking at the board, so let's switch to the board view again, and you'll see that the no RTK light has gone out. So that usually means the board has entered fixed mode, and so you should be getting high resolution, high precision readings. And in the earlier part of the video, I showed you how to turn on high precision NMEA sentences. So we should be getting high precision now. This doesn't seem to be changing to, it's not formatted right anyways, but I have a feeling that we're actually in fixed mode, but we can't see it, because it should say 3D/DGNSS/fixed, but you can't see it because on the Macintosh it doesn't seem to be drawn correctly. Whoa, that was not at all right. Okay, let's put this back. Let's see if it'll go back. Oh man, this doesn't work quite right on a Macintosh. So that's how to set up. That's how to test your N-Trip server account and start to get RTK corrections onto your board. Now you're going to need that the same server information when you actually set up the RTK lib software on your Raspberry Pi. You won't be running U-Center on your Raspberry Pi. You'll be running RTK lib, and you'll need that same account information in order to get RTK corrections. Oop, we got an error on the N-Trip client. There were errors, so that might be why we're not entering fixed mode. So it might be that this Mac emulation is not perfect, but it was good enough to show you how to do it. So if you can run U-Center on a Windows machine, run it on a Windows machine. It's a native Windows piece of software. But if you can't, then you can try out this Mac stuff, and you should be able to set the settings as we've shown you how to do it and everything. So that's RTK lib settings.